Okay, in this next section of the DVD, we're going to be tackling that very difficult subject of sweep picking. This is something that's caused me a few problems over the years, but I've kind of figured out some ways of combating this technique, so I can get some, very smooth, very kind of easy to get under the fingers sort of ways of approaching sweep picking. So I'm just going to get on with the first example. It's going to be a D major sweeped arpeggio. One thing I'd like to point out before we carry on with the sweeping thing is predominantly most of the sweep picking that we're going to be doing on this DVD will only be sweep picking one way. It's a kind of thing that I got from Richie Kotzen, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best sweep pickers for rock guitar. And he tends to do more kind of sweep picking on the way up. He does it a lot on the way down as well, but for a lot of ideas that I've gravitated towards, they're more using sweep picking as a kind of sort of flurry of notes into a legato passage sort of on the way down. I kind of prefer this technique because it sounds a bit more fluid. To the listeners' ears, if nobody's watching you, or even if people are, they still think that you're kind of sweep picking everything, and when you listen to it, it sounds more like a really kind of fluid sweeping technique. So, I mean, if you want to have a go at sweep picking on the way down, then by all means, have a go at that as well. For some sweeping exercises, I do, for some shapes you have to sweep up and you have to sweep down, but for the shapes that we're going through today, predominantly you'd only need to be able to sort of like do it on the way down. So really it's kind of more of an introduction into sort of sweep picking than looking at it from a really kind of detailed view. So anyway, I'm just going to get on and play the first example, so here we go. Okay, this first example is sweep picked on the way down only, D major arpeggio. So it's going to start on the 17th fret on the A string with a downstroke. Then we're just going to continue that downstroke to the 16th fret on the D string. Then first finger is going to play fret 14 on the G string. Then continuing the downward motion to the 15th fret on the B. Then playing the 14th fret on the high E string, and then hammering on fret 17 on the high E, and then playing an upstroke, which is the last pick stroke that we'll make on the 14. Then we're doing legato technique on the way down, so we're just going to be hammering on all the notes. So we'll be hammering on 15 on the B, 14 on the G, 16 on the D, and finishing up on 17 on the A string. So let me just play through that slow for you so you can see how the pick is moving through the arpeggio. With sweep picking, it's not so much a separate picking motion, it's more of a, if you get the pick and you're almost pushing your way through the strings, in one continuous downward motion, and then at the end, after the hammer on, there'll just be the upstroke to then come back up the lick. So let me just play that for you slow. Okay, let me try that a little bit quicker for you. And up to speed. Okay, this next sweep picked arpeggio, we're going to be looking at the B minor arpeggio, which starts on the 14th fret on the A string. This is a slightly different variation to the major. There's just a couple of notes that have been changed just to give it that more kind of minor sound. So let me just play through the lick for you and then we'll break it down. Okay, we're still using the same technique as we were in the first arpeggio, still just sweeping on the way down and then that one upstroke at the end. So we're starting on the 14th fret on the A string, then pushing down with a downward motion for the sweep onto the 12th fret on the D, then the 11th fret on the G string, 12th fret on the B string, then the 10th fret on the high E string, hammering on fret 14, and then upstroke on the 10th fret to then come back down the scale, just using legato technique. So hammering on the 12th fret on the B, hammering on 11 on the G, hammering 12 on the D, and then hammering 14 on the A. Okay, with both these sweeps, I've actually started on the third finger of my left hand. You'll probably see a lot of people playing using their little finger, so they'll be doing it like that. For me, I find it's kind of just a bit easier for me for some reason, because I spent a lot of years not using my little finger at all for anything. And a lot of people would sort of like said to me that I'd never be able to play fast if I didn't use my little finger. But I spent a lot of years kind of trying to prove people wrong with that and just didn't bother using it. So I've sort of developed a real sort of strength in these three fingers. For any kind of really awkward stretches, like when you get to the top of both arpeggios, major and minor, my little finger does make an appearance. Just to make it a bit more fluid. Again, you know, that's just personal preference with fingering. If you would rather use your little finger for the bottom and top of the arpeggio, then that's perfectly fine. It's just whatever feels comfortable to you. Okay, moving on, we're just going to look at a sweep picking arpeggio section, which is just going to involve major and minor shapes, which we've already gone through, but just kind of connecting them in more of a musical context. So you're not just playing random arpeggios and thinking, well, this isn't really kind of musical. So just going to string a load together just so you can make a bit of a piece out of it, so you can something for you to practice that's a bit more musical, basically. So I'm just going to play through the example and then we'll look at the different arpeggios that make up that sequence. Okay, for this next arpeggio excerpt, we're just moving the various major and minor positions that we've already been through in previous examples and just joining them together. So the first arpeggio that we're going to be playing through in this excerpt is E minor, which we already covered as the B minor shape, but we're just going to be starting from the E on the A string. So that's fret 19. Okay, so slowly we're just going to play the first arpeggio, which is the E minor. Then we're going to be playing D major arpeggio, which is going to start on the 17th fret on the A string. Then the next arpeggio we're going to play is the B minor, which was one of the examples that we did previously, starting on the 14th fret on the A string. Then for this last arpeggio, we're finishing on the 14th fret on the A string, but we're just going to slide the third finger up to fret 15 on the A. So we're just going to do this. And, well, the arpeggio is going to be C major, which is going to round off the actual excerpt that we played. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just play all 4 arpeggios slow, so you can check out the sweep picking with my right hand, and then just get a general feel at a slow pace how these are slotted together. Okay, and I'll try that a little bit quicker for you. And just try that a little bit quicker just for fun. Okay, with that last arpeggio section that we just played through, let's see what it will sound like with tapping higher notes, using the same notes from the arpeggio but just tapping a note higher. It gives it a really nice effect, and it's a sound that I really love to use in my playing. This is also the added reason of why I only sweep pick on the way up, because most sweeps I do end up with tapping on the end. So I can kind of do the sweep, tap, and then kind of allow my left hand to come back down the scale without kind of rushing from the tap and then sort of sweeping down again, so it sounds a lot more fluid. So I'll just play through that arpeggio section again, but this time adding taps. Okay, we've come to the last and final arpeggio in this section on sweep picking. This last arpeggio is going to be quite a large sweep and slide in it. It's going to involve some tapping and stuff. The first arpeggio is going to be in C sharp minor on the way up, and then we're just going to slide up to E major and then come down using more of a kind of legato technique for scales and stuff on the way down. So again, it's only sweep picking on the way up, so there's not going to be any sweep picking on the way down, and there'll be a tap involved way up on the 24th fret. If you're minus the 24th fret and you've only got 22, you can pretty much tap the gap between the pickup or the front pickup and the back of the neck, and if you tap hard enough you'll be able to get pretty much the note that I'll be able to get with the 24th fret. So just give that a go anyway. So I'm going to play through the example and then, as before, we'll just break it down. Okay, so let's look at breaking down this arpeggio. It's starting on the 9th fret on the bottom E string, and it's just going to continue the downward motion of the sweep pick through these next notes. So then we're going to pick the 11th fret on the A string, then 13 on the D, but it's all a separate motion. So the way to get separation on licks like this is to try and play them as separately as you can, rather than kind of layering notes one on top of the other, because then they'll start to kind of reverberate next to each other and it won't sound very clean. So you kind of get that effect, which isn't really what we're after. So try and kind of, once you've played a note, lift it off. So you kind of get more of a separation with this beginning part of the sweep. Okay, then we're going to move on from the 13th fret on the D string, and then we're going to have a barred section where we're just going to bar the 9th fret across the G, B, and the top E string. So we're going to have... Okay, but again, with the beginning of this, because it's a bar, and if you hold down all the notes at the same time, they're going to run into each other. So what you kind of have to sort of do is sort of roll your first finger. So... So no two notes are kind of down on the neck at the same time. You're playing them individually, but you're just using your finger to sort of roll over the notes, so you get a bit more clarity. So this is the lick so far. Okay, after we've done the rolling technique with our first finger over the 9th fret on the G, B and the E strings, we'll be hammering on the 12th fret on the high E string with our little finger, and then the next part of the arpeggio will be sliding that little finger from the 12th fret all the way up to the 19th fret, and then we're going to be tapping fret 24, or the gap between the neck and the front pickup if you don't have as many frets, then pull off to fret 19, and then it's just going to be legato all the way down the arpeggio. So we'll go from 19, pull off to 16, then hammer on 17 on the B, hammer 16 on the G, then slide to 13 on the G, 14 on the D, then hammer on 16 on the A string, pull off to 14, pull off to 12, then slide from 12 with your first finger to 11, then hammer on fret 14 on the low E string, pull off to 12, and then slide your second finger all the way to the 9th fret on the C sharp on the low E string. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play through that whole entire arpeggio section at a slow tempo, so you can just see what the right and the left hands are doing, and then we'll just work with it and sort of go up to speed so you can see what it should sound like fast and slow. Okay, we'll try that arpeggio a little bit quicker. And up to speed.